Greetings viewers and welcome back to a new video. A viewer reached out to me through my website saying that her PS2 wouldn't power on. Now she initially had some graphical issues, sent it to another shop to see what was wrong, and when she got it back, nothing worked. Now in this video, I'll go through diagnosing what's going on, show how the symptoms of the fault led me on one path, and how the issue ended up being something that I wasn't expecting. So stay tuned. Okay, before we plug this in and I'll show what's going on with this thing, the customer was nice enough to leave this note inside the box, so it actually gives us a really good picture on what's going on. Plus, I've been talking to her. But, so first, before she sent it in to get fixed the first time, the image was freezing during gameplay, but the audio was still continuing to work. And from the video that I saw of it initially, basically what I was thinking was that probably what was happening was the graphics synthesizer was failing, maybe like a broken solder ball or something like that, which could also be to the VRAM could have been an issue as well. And then eventually it would just end up freezing at the startup tower, which is what I did see in the video, the tower screen, and then it was often looking like a VHS video skipping and rolling. So that definitely would say that there's something going on with the graphics. It's like losing signal, or probably, like I said, probably something with the graphics synthesizer. So then after she sent it for repair, there ended up being no signs of power at all. And then she said she opened it up, she noticed there were 2 missing screws on the outer case. The power board was disconnected, so she reconnected it, and then there was power. And then she said she saw damages to the cord that deals with the connection of the controller. So what my guess is that they also damaged the ribbon cable to the controller port, but we'll take a look at that as well. Where was I? And then no image or sound at all. And then thank you for your help with this. I hope you feel better soon. And as we were talking, I did admit that I pulled my back muscle. I'm okay now. It's all completely healed. So thank you so much for the concern on that. Okay, so just right off the bat, looking at it, yeah, I mean, just usual wear and whatnot. The one thing I did notice is that, probably can't see it from the front, the top here, but yeah, it's doing a little bit of weeble wobbling. So looking on the bottom, it's got 6 rubber feet, and it's only supposed to have 2 on the outside, and then just regular caps here, but we can fix that. I got plenty of spares for that, so we can get that sorted out. Yeah, let's plug this in and I'll show what's going on. So we got the red light, so that's always good. See, we got no signal. So like the last PS2, let's give it a minute to see if maybe the signal switches. I mean, we do have a fan blowing pretty good. This drive works mostly. Yeah, she did say she left the game in there, but we'll test to see if it's going to be doing anything. Yeah, it's definitely not I don't think it's an AV port issue. I mean, it feels loose, but that's probably just my cable, just because it gets used a lot. So yeah, it's still saying no signal, so it's not sending any kind of video signal out. All right, so let's go back overhead. We'll open this up. I want to test the disk drive first, see if we have any kind of life, because I don't think that it's booting anything. Let's see what hell we are about to get into. So here's kind of what I'm thinking probably happened. So I'm thinking with the graphical issues, whoever got this to do the repair attempt, I think what they were probably trying to do, now this is just my personal theory, they might have tried to reflow the graphics synthesizer, but then failed either by bridging some solder balls underneath or maybe damaging some other components on the inside. So that's kind of my hunch. And then they obviously half-assed putting it back together. But that's kind of what my hunch is going to be. Because I didn't even hear the disk drive moving or anything like that. Oh wow, they rounded that screw out. If there was a reball attempt done, or not a reball, a reflow attempt done, should be some kind of signs of it being done, so some kind of evidence. So we'll see what we can find. Oh, and by the way, for anybody wondering, it is a 39001. They seem to be the ones that always seem to come across my bench. And somebody did remove the switch at one point because the little nub that's in there is broken off. So, yeah. Plug this back in. I want to see if this disk drive does anything. We'll see any kind of twitching or anything, because I have the feeling that it's not even going through its boot sequence, which means that there's probably an even deeper board level issue. So let's see. Alright, so we're going to be paying attention here. And our copy of Liberty City Stories is pretty scratched up here, so it might not even read. I'll reach out to her and see if she wants me to resurface that for her. Yeah, that's it. That's all it does. If only the graphics synthesizer was bad. That should still initialize. Let me try one of my own discs here. This one's also a little scuffed up a little bit. It's my Hot Wheels World Race test disc. It's blue. So yeah, just does one twitch. Just try one more disc. It's gonna do the same thing, I'm sure. Sure, why not Cabela's Trophy Bucks? It's always a classic, right? Yeah, just one twitch. Alright. Alright, so I'm thinking where we're going to go from here next is, I'm going to strip this thing completely down. We're going to basically isolate it just to the bare components, because what that twitch is telling me is that it's not initializing anything else in the system. So it's definitely like a boot failure, because if it was just the graphic synthesizer, it should still do stuff, which it's not doing. So yeah, let's get the rest of this apart. And plus, maybe we'll see if there's something obvious in here. I mean, that single twitch could have also be, I can't see too far in there. Nothing might be even connected. Might be stuff that's disconnected, so we'll check all that too. Take off the controller port here. And maybe we can see what this damage that we're looking at is. Honestly, I'm not seeing anything out of the ordinary here. I mean, these crinkles are normal. I'm gonna take this out. Alright, so we should be free from the bottom here. Well, they did connect everything, so we'll just disconnect. What are the chances that this is together? Ha! I had a feeling that was going to happen. Yeah. Looks like they broke that ribbon cable, which is lucky. I got a whole bunch of them coming. So I have replacements for that as well if she wants to replace that. Thankfully nothing else. Let me get my tweezers for that one. This one has to be stubborn. There we go. So we are going to pop this off very carefully, because that laser ribbon cable is definitely still going to be attached. Just disconnect it. Just visually inspecting the power supply, it looks fine. It's actually pretty clean. Now, the one thing I am noticing about this is so many of these screws are loose. Like they did not put any of these screws back on tightly. My screwdriver should not be having this easy of a time. Alright, then we just got one right there. Alright, let's see what the damage is. Well, the thermal pads are completely dry. Alright, let's take a look here. Okay, so we got a GH19 board, so this is a later 35001. I don't believe I see any missing components. I don't see any evidence of a reflow attempt, unless they just really did not use any flux. Because if then they tried to do that, it's very possible that they could have collapsed some solder balls underneath. But I can't really tell if that's broken trace or if that's... Oh, that was just dirt. Now that trace looks complete. Yeah, let's do a little bit of a quick testing, see if maybe we can figure something out here. Alright, so I have the TV on. Sorry you can't see it. I'll just have to describe if anything happens. I just don't have a second camera right now. I have this powered on. Kind of a shame about the power switch here, but yeah, so I want to do a couple tests. First, what I want to do is I want to see if anything happens on the screen without anything plugged in. See if maybe something in the boot order has gone wrong. And then I'm going to try and press down on the graphics synthesizer, see if maybe there is possibly some solder ball fatigue. So without further ado, there's nothing going on there. We'll see if the emotion engine heats up too. Yeah, nothing's going on so far. Yeah, and I'm not feeling any heat coming into the emotion engine here. All right, so we'll just give it a minute, see if anything else happens, maybe for it to heat up or whatever. So, yeah, the emotion engine's not even hot. This should be blistering hot. I've given it like 2 minutes, and yeah, nothing. We got nothing. All right, so clearly, I gotta look up the boot order exactly. I did look this up recently, but now I actually forget. But I believe the emotion engine's supposed to go on before the graphics synthesizer, so something's going on here. Alright, so we clearly have a power issue going on. Well, at least that's what I'm leaning towards. I think that there might be an issue with the rail going to the emotion engine, but before we dive into that a little bit more, I do want to just rule this out to make sure that the power supply is delivering proper voltage. So we're going to set this to DC volts. We'll just turn it on. And I believe that's 212 volts. Yeah, we got 11.76 and 11.76. All right, the power supply is fine. And so poured over the schematic here for a minute, and the first thing I want to make sure that we find is if we have power going to the emotion engine. And looking at the schematic, the way that I'm going to decide to do it is tie into some of these capacitors, because we have a 1.5 volt and a 1.8 volt rail going into different capacitors here. So I'm going to try to tie into C163, 161, or any of these, C966. Now, I'm actually kind of realizing when I do PS2s, I kind of need 2 screens for that, because other circuit boards print on what each component is. The PS2 does not, because you actually need to see where it is on another diagram that they have in the repair manual, not the repair manual, the service manual. So the capacitors I'm looking at are actually on the back, behind the emotion engine. So yeah, let's just make sure. Oop, that's definitely on. So we gotta actually flip this over. And this is actually where I wish I had. And honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be able to tie into it. Didn't even realize that. because the components I need are actually right here. And yeah, that's not going to work. Oh, that's unfortunate. I need a variable power supply. Yeah, because every single one of them is right here. If I had a power supply, I can just tie in right there and be done with it. I'm gonna kind of think about this now for a second. Because yeah, that's everything right there that I need. Right here. What we can do though, is we can probe into the positive and see if maybe there's a short to ground. So yeah, we have obviously a high ohms there. That's kind of what we want to see. Yeah, it seems like at least nothing shorted the ground, but maybe it might be the time I finally order a power supply. What do you think? Alright, it's a couple days now, and I got this in from Amazon. I'll have a affiliate link in the description below, but yeah, this is a WAMP Tech. I got this for like 40 something bucks on Amazon. Pretty basic power supply. You just set your voltage, your amperage, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing too fancy. So what else I did was I had a dead power supply for a fat PS2, so I harvested the connector off of it, and I soldered on some wires. So the black ones would be the negative, red ones would be the positive, which match up with this here. So then I can just plug it in like so, and I can power the whole board like this. So I gotta come up with a more permanent solution. I mean, this has clips that go in there. I'll probably make something like that as well. But since I do not have anything like that on hand, this will just have to do. Okay, so I do want to make sure we connect to the right pins here, which I already know that these are negative, because if we go positive to negative, yeah, well, bad things can happen to the board. So just want to verify real quick. So just put it in continuity mode. So right on the ground plane here. Yep, those are the negative. These two are the positive. So I did play with this with another board the other night. So last night actually. So this power supply is already set up. I have it set to 11.8 volts, which is about what the old other power supply, or the system's power supply, was outputting. And we have the red light. So we'll set the multimeter to volts. Realistically, we can test any one of these capacitors, and we should get 1.5 volts. So let's try that. Here we go, 1.68, 0.68, 1.68. So I think that should be alright, even though it's a little bit higher. Alright, so next we want to check either of these, C901, 909, 965, or 966. They're going to be little capacitors. Okay, it's a little hard to find, but C966. The middle one right here. Okay, we do have 1.831 volts, so we do have power going to the processor. So now the question is, why is it not initializing? So you might have to take a moment and think about this a little bit. Okay, one more thing I want to check before we flip this back over and chase something else is that there are two inductor coils right here, so I want to check to make sure. I think they're supposed to be 1.5 volts, so I'll only be able to get one side of them. I mean, I know we have the voltage coming in on these. Okay, so I think I might have seen what happened here. So I was, when I was probing back here, the power supply went into an overcurrent protection. I don't know why it did that. Maybe it sent too much power in, or maybe even possibly when I was probing, I slipped a little bit and maybe bridged the connection. Hopefully that wasn't the case. But I kind of had a hunch. And so the PS2 board has a lot of fuses that kind of go around to protect against overcurrents like that. So this is one right here, F1. But they're also always silk screened as PS. So if we go to PS2 here, which is a little one, PS1, which is the one that always blows on these for some reason, that one's good. So I was just kind of probing around. This one here, PS3, no continuity. PS7 here, no continuity. PS9 is good. PS10 is good. Because the other thing I noticed too is the power supply will say how many amps a system is pulling. And it was basically pulling 0.08, which meant that like this wasn't getting power at all. Which also would explain why I wasn't getting power on anything that I already probed. So something shorted out, blew a couple chips. So I guess moving forward, what we have to do is we have to replace PS3 and PS7 here and see if that brings power back up. Take out PS7 here. I did also forget to mention that these two fuses that blew around the 12-volt rail, so they're PS3 comes directly off the power supply, so that one makes sense on why it blew. Really should be using my fume extractor for this. Okay, we'll just touch up the joint. We're just going to reuse solder. Sure, why not put a dab on there? Okay, that should be good. Okay, we'll just touch this up as well. Okay, I think it's securely on. Let's just check it with the multimeter. Okay, so I'm going to check it as I'm just going to go from power. It's good. Okay, I want to test to make sure we're back to where we were, so I got everything hooked back up. Let's turn on the power supply. So I'm just going to touch where I'm not going to possibly fat finger it again. Okay, 1.68. All right, we're exactly back to where we were, so that's good. Okay, so nothing else happened. None of the other rails went bad, so yeah, it was probably just, I think I just slipped with the probe, but I got everything I need to know that the motion engine is getting power. So why is it not initializing? I want to go and check the RAM chips next. So I think what we will do is we will shut off the power supply And I think I might be able to use the old power supply because the RAM chips, I believe, are on the other side. So, all right, so this is basically how I'm gonna go about testing these RAM chips to see if we kind of infer if they're working or not. So first thing I want to do is we'll just power this up real quick. See if they're warm. Yeah, so far I'm not really feeling much of anything. But the Emotion Engine's also ice cold. So is the graphics synthesizer. These RAM chips aren't hot. Okay, so I'm gonna press on these. I'm just gonna see if there's anything that pops up on the TV screen. And I'm not seeing anything. So all I'm doing there is checking to see if the ball grid array underneath might just be cracked and it's just making a weak signal. Not that it fully will mean, but, which I mean, not that that would be it would only flicker a little bit if the ball grid array was bad. Even if it's bad, it might not even do anything, but it's a good quick check. So yeah, I'm not seeing anything, so this is how I'm going to test it board level. So if we look at the schematic here, we got two power rails coming in. We got a 2.5 volt and then a 1.8 volt. Now what I'm thinking is, if these rails are good, let me go up a little further on here. So we got this IC right here, IC101 DRCG. This is the clock generator. So basically how this RAM works is it uses a high-speed clock frequency at 400 megahertz, and that feeds directly into the RAM on pin 4 and 5, and unfortunately we can't check it there. But what I want to do is I want to first test to see if test it at the IC101 on pins, where are we at? I think it's pins 12 and 13, and then we'll check as far down as we can, which I think is just after these resistors. But we'll have to check that with an oscilloscope. And so we got to see if there's 400 megahertz. Now, if there's not 400 megahertz coming out of this chip is bad and will have to be replaced. And this alone will keep the entire system from working, just not having that clock signal. Okay, so I got this flipped upside down to basically match what I'm looking at here. C968 and C967 there and there. All right, so let's set this on voltage. DC. Put it there. You know, one side here. So we need 2.5 volts, 2.65. Yeah, so that's actually close enough there. Yeah, so the 2.5 volt rail is looking to be pretty good. Yeah, we got 1.8 on C101. Don't remember where that is, but that's probably going to tell me that that rail is working. I do just want to check it as close to the chip as possible. So let me just try and find C176. Aha, there it is. Oh, it's that little guy next to those two Vias. Okay. Okay, little guy. Wrong side. Oh, slipped. Yeah, we got 1.8 volts. Okay, so the chips are getting proper power. So now we got to see, are they getting the clock frequency? And for that, we're going to be checking this little guy. So I actually just want to show something real quickly. So this is the board from the last video, the PS2 that had the dead video. But everything else works on it. So I want to show what this properly looks like. So this is the pinout for the clock generator. So we want to probe pins 12, 13, and we can probe pin 6 as well. Just make sure that that's working, because that goes to, what is that, the Emotion Engine 202? Not the Emotion Engine. graphic synthesizer, so it does need that as well to work. So yeah, we don't necessarily need to worry about it being 400 megahertz. We just need to make sure that we got something. So you see we got a waveform here. I also just have it clipped to the ground plane. You definitely want to have that as close as possible. So now let's just stop that. Oh. So yeah, you see we got the good signal there. Now the pin below it. There we go. Yeah, see? Good. All right, so where's pin 6? 876. And see, we got a waveform there. All right, so let me hook up the customer's board and we're gonna test the exact same thing. So now we have a baseline of what this is supposed to look like. Now I can probe that one. Okay, now we are back on the customer's board here. So let me just plug in. Let's see. Okay, we got nothing there. Yeah, there's nothing there. Okay, let's go to pin 6. Nothing. No signal. The clock that comes in, where is it? At pin 4, we got a clock going in, and that comes from IC106, which is on the back of the board. So let me just real quickly just check to see if we have anything coming in. Looks like it's coming from the VIA. Nothing. I don't see anything. So it might not even be this chip, actually. It might actually be underneath the board. Okay, so this is IC106 right here, and connected to it is this component right here. That's the, what is it, the crystal vibrator, I think it said in the schematic. But basically that's what generates the signal. So this is gonna feed into here, which is then gonna eventually feed into the chip on the back. So first I wanna check this chip. Now this is the, this is that other PS2 board again, so I wanna get a baseline. So we're gonna check this chip and this right here. So that should give us the perfect baseline of what we should be seeing. So let's see. Oh, we got a... Okay, so see, we got a good waveform there. We have a waveform there. So these are the two waves that we should be seeing. And then they go into pins 1 and 16. So there. There. And then they go pin 9. That's where it goes out. And pin 15. So out and pin 9. And that's clock B. Whoop. So yeah, see, we got some, that's the signal that's generated from the chip. And those two, I gotta see, clock A. Yeah, clock A, which is pin 15, that's the one that goes, probably should show this to you. So that's IC106, X102, in, pin 1, pin 16. We have good there. Pin 9 is clock B, and that goes to the motion engine again. But clock A goes to the clock generator. Let's plug in the customer's board once again, since now we got some baseline readings. Okay, let's power it up, see what happens. Let's, just for the sake of it, let's just go straight to pin 9. And we got nothing. Let's go to pin 15. Don't see anything. 16. There's really nothing there. Pin 1, it's nothing. Which means, let's probe this. I mean, we could have just went straight for this in the beginning, to be honest with you, but where's the suspense in that? Yeah, we got nothing. No signal. No signal. Okay, so I am a total dink, and I did not read this circuit properly. Alright, so basically, how this works is it doesn't start at X102. So at pin 1, it goes into the oscillator and then out and then into the chip. So it does need to be powered. So pins 2 and 3, we need 3.5 volts. Okay, so pin 1 and 2. So yeah, I'll show you what I mean. Oh no, pin 2 and 3, my bad. So we got 0.75 volts and 0.75 volts. Okay, so let's go to Ferrite Bead 104. Just want to show something here. Yeah, so I'm going to go to a Ferrite bead here. It is actually on the other side of the board, next to the graphic synthesizer. So just gingerly flip this over. So it should be this component right here. Yep, I can't see my multimeter. Okay, so yeah, so we have a slight difference in voltage, but yeah, that's another component on that line. So we got to go further back into the circuit. And for that, where I found is we need to find out why that 2.5 volt rail is missing. So if we look here at this IC417, this regulator, so we have a 3.4 volt, and then it goes into a fuse and then goes out to this line here. We're ignoring this one because this isn't what we're looking at the moment. We're looking for this DIG plus 3.5 volt 1. That should be the one that we need. All right, so let's take a look at PS14. That's the fuse. That's actually on the other side of the board again. So let's probe that while I have voltage up. Okay, so we got 3.45 volts there. 0.68 there. So let me show something here. I think we might have found one problem, which I think we might have multiple problems with this board. That fuse ain't working, so we got to replace this fuse. It should really only take a second. Okay, there we go. All right, let's see if we got that rail back. Okay, 3.4 on one side, 3.4 on the other. Great, now let's check that chip again. Okay, so we're sitting at 1 volt, but it's dropping. Kind of wonder if we got maybe a short. Okay, we got 3.4 there. Maybe I was just hitting the wrong. Okay, so that's odd. pin 3 is fine. Pin 2... it's not pulling in what it should be pulling in. We got some more investigation. Okay, so tracing pin 2 back. So we got these coupling capacitors here, but there's a Ferrite bead on the path that I think we should check out. Now I did go ahead and believe we tested this already once before. So I do have the console powered on and the Ferrite bead's right there. So let's probe both sides of it and see what the voltage is. It should read 3.5-ish on both sides. So start here, 3.43, 0.75. Yeah, we got a fault right there. Yeah, so this Ferrite bead's bad, so we're probably going to have to replace that. Now, is that the cause of all our issues? That actually very well could be, because if this broke, that could knock out the entire clock circuit and create the symptoms that we were seeing. So now I'm going to let my customer know what I have found and see how she wants to proceed with it, and maybe see if that's the fault right there. Alright, so I heard back from the customer and she gave the go-ahead to move forward with the repair. So first things first, we're going to remove the donor piece from the donor board. Okay, so the little part we need is right here. Let's put some flux down. Yep, don't want to lose that. It's a very tiny piece. Ah, crap, we lost the pad. Oh wait, no we didn't. Whew! That's good. I think that just came off the component, that's all. Probably put a little bit on. Okay, I think we're in. Alright, so I have this all back together for testing. Let's hope that was the problem. So I think we've made some level of progress, because I don't remember seeing this light blinking before when we booted up. So clearly I think it's getting further along in the boot process, but now why is it not displaying video? So we might have multiple issues with this board. Alright, so I was doing a little bit of poking and prodding off camera a little bit to kind of see what might have happened. So I want to direct your attention to PS14 here. So we're going to set the multimeter voltage and turn on the power supply. Now obviously I would do this in continuity mode, but just for the sake of brevity, so we got 3.44 volts there, 0.74 on that side. So this fuse actually did blow. So that's on the same 3.5 volt rail that the clock circuit is on. So that's telling me that maybe one of those ICs on that clock circuit has shorted out. So, or has like some kind of internal fault, and it's pulling that rail down and shorting out and blowing this fuse. So I actually want to try a technique here where we can inject voltage in on this side, because I don't really want to put another fuse in. I'm running out of these things on donor boards, so I don't want to put another fuse in and then have that blow out. So I want to inject voltage in, and I want to see if any of those chips get hot or any other components get warm or hot, and see if maybe one of those is the issue. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, so I just want to tack a wire there, because we're going to put 1 to 2 volts through. This doesn't really need to be too fancy, because we're going to be removing this fuse anyway. That will be good enough. Okay, so next what I want to do, I'm just going to do this to show what I'm doing. So I'm just going to lower this to, well, 1 volt. We can always move it up if need be. Okay, so I'm going to shut that off. I just want to set it up correctly, show how I'm doing this. Clip 1 clip onto the ground plane. And the power there. And then this is the 1 chip on this side that I want to test. So power it on. This would be a lot easier to do. If I had a thermal camera, because I can see exactly what the temperature is, but I'm just doing this by feel. It doesn't really help that my hands are already cold. So I'm gonna flip it over. Let's kick it up another volt. Let's go to 2.5. And we'll do 2.2, and we're pulling 0.306 amps. And this IC here is getting warm. The other ones are a little warm too. Alright, now I'm at 3.2. That's actually getting close to what it's supposed to be. Future Chris here. I'm sorry about the audio, but my mic didn't work in this portion of the video. Also figures it's the climax of the video. And I didn't notice during the recording, so bear with me as I explain what is happening for the next couple minutes. Off camera, when I moved the board, I touched and noticed that the IOP chip was very hot. What this chip does is it manages communication between key things inside the PS2, like the disk drive, controller, boot process, and other parts of the startup process. The best analogy I can think of is a traffic cop directing cars at an intersection on where exactly they need to go. After doing a little research, the symptoms my customers saw do line up with a failing IOP, with random freezings and glitches. And it seems the issue in the chip is along the power circuit that also powers the clock circuit. We already know there's too much current on that circuit where it is blowing the fuse. And a short in the IOP can cause the overcurrent situation we are in right now. So to fully confirm it, I need to isolate IC106 and IC101 from the circuit. I'm going to do this one at a time just to fully confirm that those chips are not the problem. If the current still doesn't stabilize after removing those 2 chips from the circuit, the only other chip on that circuit that can pull too much power is the IOP, and that will be the issue. So we're going to start off here with IC101. So what I'm doing is I'm just lifting the component up just to break the circuit on one pad. This one is a little tiny, so it actually came off both pads. And I'll just tack it back in for safekeeping. So now I plugged everything back in, powered it up, and we're still pulling about 0.8 amps, which means IC 101 was not the issue. So moving on to IC 106. And we're going to do the same thing again here. So I'm just putting some flux on, and then we're going to just lift up one side of each of these components to fully isolate this chip from the circuit. We have to do it with both components to fully isolate it. And once again, it's a little component, so it actually completely removed it, but this time I'm just going to keep it off and keep it safe. All right, we're plugged in. Now let's check this one. Let's see. Are we still pulling 0.8 amps? Well, now we're pulling 0.773, so it dropped a little bit. So, yeah, it's under my personal opinion that we have something going on this circuit. I do believe that this chip is what's bad. Okay, so one last quick test before I rule it. These should be the decoupling caps on the back. I just want to check to make sure there's no wonkiness with them. So I'm just going to probe one side. We just want to see them kind of like charging up. Yeah. I don't think we're going to see anything out of the ordinary here. Yep, that's the ground side. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything too wonky here. Thing seems as it should. I think I've seen enough to make a reasonable conclusion here. I think this chip is bad and it's failed internally. It actually would explain pretty much what she's been experiencing, where it was like slow and being with the glitches and stuff like that in the beginning, and then finally basically gave out. It might have finally given out when the other shop was handling it, or maybe I don't know. But yeah, I think that the best path forward for this system is to do a board swap, because I do not have the specialized equipment to remove this and replace it. So I think that that's going to be the best case forward. I'm going to email the customer, let them know that the plans change a little bit, explain what I found, and then I guess we'll be back on whatever the decision is. But yeah, like I said, I'm recommending a board replacement on this one. At least this one can live on to help save other systems. All right, we are back, and the new board has arrived. So it's pretty much the same as the one that came out. It is also a GH19. It's just a number instead of an 11 is a 21. So I think it's just a little bit newer, which is fine. It's in really good shape. I did test it. It does work. So really all it is at this point is putting it back together. So we are going to replace the thermal pads on the heatsink. We'll be using the original heat sinks that came with the customer's PlayStation, even though this did come with the new one as well. But try to keep a little bit of originality here. So I do want to just clean up this board a little bit, and then we'll put on the thermal pad. So I have this Arctic TP3, or at least what's left of it. I do need to order more of them. So it's 1.5 millimeters for the Emotion Engine, graphics synthesizer, and the RAM. And then we're going to be using 2 millimeters for these 3 chips on the back. Actually, first things first, let's take this battery out. It's always sad for me to take these particular batteries out because I got the PlayStation logo on them, but that battery is probably definitely dead at this point. Obviously, I want to clean this up where we're having the mating surfaces for new thermal compound. Not thermal compound, thermal pads. Underside here is pretty good. We'll probably just get away with a little compressed air. But I do want to clean these 3 chips because that's where the thermal pads came off of. Alright, so now it's time for the thermal pads. So we're going to remove this. The original ones definitely had like this big kind of squarish thing. We don't need to do that. We just need the thermal pads to be on here. Plus I don't have enough to really go ahead and do that. So we're going to just cut out squares for about the size that these components are. We'll do a little bit of overhang just in case, just to be safe. And then we'll have a smaller one here for the graphics synthesizer. We'll do the entire size of the chip here. Around here should be fine. And I was hoping I had enough for these, but I do not. So what I'm going to do, I'll straighten this cutout and just kind of make it a little neater. Instead, I got to order more anyway, so we'll cover all these chips here. That's definitely overkill, but you know, I'd much rather have all this covered than not. Yeah, this might be excessively big. We'll just trim this down a little bit. And these thermal pads are 2 millimeters. Something actually popped off. That stinks. I thought I had an extra one, but I do not. Now, all this is really doing is making up a little extra space. It popped off right here. You can see on this one it's still intact. It does actually kind of look like it's starting to, yeah, it's starting to come off as well. But once it's in, it shouldn't go anywhere, but this one obviously has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new one and use electrical tape. It's about the same thickness here. So it's also pretty much the exact same width, so that actually works out very good. So we'll just cut one of these and then it should solve that problem. Thought I had an extra one here with one of the other boards, but I don't, so. Wonderful, like it never happened. And we got a little edge here. Snip that off. Perfect. Okay. So I believe that this one goes like this. Yeah, that should stay put. All right, we're getting to the home stretch here. All right, so I did clean this. My camera was overheating, so I took a moment to clean this and a bunch of the other stuff, so she's actually getting a partial refurbishment here. It's definitely cleaner than it was before. All right, now we just have the final button up. I do have two replacement screws for the ones that we were missing before. You know, it probably will just be best to just use my regular screwdriver here. this older plastic doesn't really want to give me much of an inch. Okay, so she's gonna have a couple extra rubber feet. I will give those back to her. Because remember, we had 2 rubber feet there, and that's not where they belong. But that's okay, because I got plenty of caps. I buy these things in bulk, so I got plenty of them. Alright, so now that's not going to do a little teeter-totter. Then the final piece. Alright. Let's see how we do here. There we go. That's what I like to see, but now I just want to check all the functionality. First, let's change the clock here. Because I think with the new clock battery, it should hold time by the time the customer gets it. At least it'll be a pretty good test. Just want to go in. Yep, we got the correct version. So it is a 39001 PS2 in here, so that's why I like replacing with the exact same motherboard, because you can use different motherboards, but then the console version is going to be different. Alright, so obviously a controller port works. Let's just make sure the memory cards work. 1, 2. Hey, get back here. It's got a sensitive, there's a sensitive disk drive there. All right, so let's just make sure it reads games and everything. So I did resurface the disk that came in the system. So that'll be a nice freebie for her. You know, I started this game at one point. I have it too. I started it, but I think I only played like 2 hours of it, and then I moved on. I really should give Liberty City Stories a good shake. Yeah, system's working great. Yeah, with all the work that we did with the motherboard, with the thermal pads and the clock battery, it should be good for a good long time. So I'm pretty confident in this. So yeah, I'd say that this has been a pretty successful fix. So yeah, I just gotta now reach out to the customer and say everything's working, and that's that. I'm glad I was able to help my customer out. I know I would have liked to have saved the original board, but without that specialized BGA equipment needed, this is the best solution in this case. But on a positive note, her board sacrifice won't be in vain, but that the other components on it will ensure that other systems will live on. With that all said, if you got any value or entertainment out of this video, hit the like button below and subscribe for future content. I'll have an affiliate link to all the equipment used in this repair down in the description below and top pinned comment, as well as a link to my website where I do repairs and refurbishments, and my eBay store where I sell games and refurbished systems. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.